Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Harsha.
Our union government set an ambitious target of doubling farmers' income by 2022. However, we could not achieve that target despite union government introducing many schemes like PM Kisan, PM Fasal Bima Yojana. Sir, in this context, could you please suggest few policy recommendations to achieve this important target?
Now, first of all, Harsha, it's nice that any political party or government talks about the farmers' welfare and enhance incomes. But a definitive target doubling income is more a political slogan than a substantive target, because you can never guarantee that. It's a very complex situation. Therefore, without going into that, let us interpret it as a desire to enhance the incomes of the farmers. And what is it that can be done? And what is being done? I think that is a better approach to it. Now, if you take the overall trajectory of India's farm sector economy, what is happening? The share of agriculture in the national income is drastically falling. At the time of independence, probably agriculture accounted for about 80% of GDP. There was almost nothing else. And probably about 70 to 80% of the people depended on agriculture. Today, the share of agriculture in the national economy fell to 15 to 17%, depending on the region you're talking about. And every year, the share of agriculture is falling by about 0.5% to 1%, because the overall Indian economy's growth in other sectors is much faster than in agriculture. So not only is it completely undermining the role of agriculture in the larger national economy, while agriculture itself is growing a little bit by 1 or 2% or 3% in good years. But overall, the share of the cake is falling. But at the same time, the population dependent on agriculture has not declined so dramatically. It's no longer 70-80%, it's now still about 50%, 45%. Whereas look at the developed economies. As economy progressed, industrialization took place and service sector took off, the share of agriculture fell even more drastically than in India. Much of the West, the share of agriculture is about 5%. In America, it's about 3% of the GDP. But the population dependent on expenditure also fell to the same level. Only 3% of people are dependent on agriculture for their livelihood in America or in Europe. Therefore, the fall of agriculture's share in the economy, because that coincided with the fall of the share of the population dependent on agriculture, there was no real distress. But even then, agriculture is much more risky than other occupations. Therefore, recognizing that in all these countries, they protect agriculture especially. Japan treats agriculture almost as a religion. Europe, they create all kinds of phytosanitary barriers, even if they're not official barriers. They somehow prevent real competition. America, they actually give enormous subsidies, including to keep the lands fallow so that there's no fallow, so there's no overproduction and there's no fall in price. So all kinds of stratagems are employed to protect agriculture. India has done the exact opposite. It's one of the paradoxical things. Every party, every government pretends to be pro-farmer. They probably believe they are also pro-farmer, sentimentally. But their actions are anti-farmer. The license permit Raj has primarily undermined agriculture, Essential Commodities Act, regulation of transport, storage, sale, retail or wholesale. Everything is controlled by law very rigorously. Whenever the agricultural prices shot up, there is a dramatic debate in the country. Like for instance, now the tomato prices are rising. Tomato is not an essential commodity, pardon my saying so. If I don't eat tomato today, if I find a substitute vegetable, heavens are not going to fall. It's not rice or wheat or pulses. It's not basic food stuff. But see the hullabaloo, see the public debate and outcry. So the whole system is designed to somehow crush the farmer when the price is good. When the price falls, the system never really responds to improve the price advantage to the farmer. For instance, onion, when Narendra Modi government came to office, 2014, onion price went up to 50-60 rupees a kilogram. Suddenly, an allegedly pro-farmer liberal government, not addicted to the regulatory or socialist policies of the earlier era, behaved like an absolutely socialist controlled government. They crushed the traders and the farmers. The price came down to 3 rupees a kg, and nobody talked about 3 rupees a kg being a totally unviable price for the farmer. You produce anything at 3 rupees a kg, I challenge you in the country and survive. Nobody bothered about it. So our whole policy perspective, despite our talk about farmers' welfare, is to reduce the farm sector prices and never worry about the farm sector price becomes so low that it's no longer remunerative. You're actually losing. And then we do chest thumping and we shout from rooftops how much we care for the farmers. So this is the overall ambience. In that, what needs to be done? One is this regulation to the detriment of the farmers must end. To that extent, the government's effort as part of these 3 farm laws, which became infructuous, to not apply Essential Commodities Act is welcome, but they must adhere to that. Even if the amendment to the law failed because government had to withdraw it, it is entirely the government's political decision. If the government of India says we will not apply Essential Commodities Act to these following commodities at this time, that's it. So whether that law worked or not is immaterial. Now supposing onion price goes up or tomato price goes up, suddenly they say, no, I have to now apply this law. It does not work. You must adhere to that rigorously. When 90% of the time the farmer is losing, if on occasion rarely farmer is getting an advantage, make sure that the farmer gets the advantage, but don't use your tools of law to hurt the farmer. Second, at the same time, Indian farm sector, any farm sector anywhere, is not completely open to free trade. It's dangerous. Take, for instance, cooking oil. India is importing $16 billion worth of cooking oil today. It's one of the bigger imports in the country, and the import is increasing. What has the government done? On the pretext that global prices of oil are rising, and Ukraine war, and therefore the supply chain problems, etc., are there, they dramatically reduced or eliminated the import tariff. And actually, it's Lok Satta and I who fought for that imposition of tariff. It took us years and years. For years, Indian government had tariffs on refined oil import, but never on the crude oil import. Why refined oil? They wanted to protect the solvent oil industry. I am all in favor of it. The government that was so alert to the needs of the solvent oil industry was completely impervious to the needs of the farmers, who are much larger in number, where there is a much greater distress, to protect them by imposing tariffs. So I fought for years. Ultimately, the governments imposed 37.5% or something, even for crude oil. But now they removed it. And they're extending that exemption from the import duty year after year, even after the supply chain problem of the Ukraine war has completely disappeared. Because the bias is always in favor of, against the farmer, the prejudice against the farmer. The bias is for the post-production processing industry. I'm all in favor of protecting our industry, but not at the cost of our farmer. So this is a live example. It's happening right now. The government of India is simply destroying the price advantage of the cooking oil producers in the country. Are these small numbers? We have 26 million farmers of India. 26 million farmers of India dependent on cooking oil. Roughly about 1/6 of Indian agricultural land is in oil seeds. Now, if we say that we want to enhance the farmer's income, and I gave you one concrete example, not a minor example, where you're actually crushing the farmer, forcing the price to be uncompetitive, and therefore the farmer to be destroyed, and then you say we care for the farmer. I'm sure they mean well. All governments, all parties, they want to help the farmers. But actions speak louder than words. Your intent is irrelevant in government. The consequences of your decisions and actions are what matters. The way to hell is often paved with good intentions. Let's take another example. There are many commodities which are non-perishable. A perishable commodity like tomato, we'll come to it later. But many commodities are non-perishable, but still the price is volatile. Cotton is a great example. Cotton is a very big crop in India and many countries. India is the first or second biggest producer in cotton every year, year after year. Now, cotton price is volatile. Similarly, you have mirch. India is a big producer of mirch. Again, price is volatile. You ask any mirch farmer. You take turmeric. It's a very Indian crop, it's part of the religion, culture, etc., paspu, as we call it. Again, the price is very volatile. The price fluctuates from 6,000 rupees to 16 or 18,000 rupees, or maybe 20,000 rupees. So 6,000 is destruction, 20,000 rupees is jackpot. So we keep seeing that. Now, a non-perishable commodity, the price should not be volatile like that. If only the government created a physical infrastructure, that is proper storage. Even if you didn't create, if you allowed the private sector to create, but if you create institutional infrastructure to sustain the farmer during the period of distress. That means credit available because the stock is available. You're not giving farmer anything free. The price is too low now, I cannot sell it at that price. Distress sale will mean that farmer will be destroyed. But I can store it. Private sector will create the facility, but when will it work? When I have enough money to sustain my life and my next crop, until the price becomes advantageous to me. So that is where the government and the banks, they must have a policy at least to give pledge loans to farmers at a concessional interest rate, because the loan is secure, the stock is with me, the farmer is hypothecated to the bank. Then these major crops where volatility, price volatility is there, the farmer will not suffer. Farmer will store it, wait until the price is better. Meanwhile, he will survive with the money available because the pledge loan is there, the stock is held in mortgage, and you can raise the next crop. This simple thing we have not done so far. I guarantee you, not even 1% of the farmers of cotton, turmeric, and mirch in India have the storage and fledgling facility. It doesn't require any law. It doesn't require genius. It doesn't require any risk because the stock is there. The banker is not losing money. It only requires your will to give the farmer the staying power in the market. Otherwise, distress sale is inevitable. You can do that. There is no evidence that any government, including the current government, has done it on a scale big enough to make an impact on Indian agriculture. Then take the perishable commodities. Take tomato as a classic example. Now, tomato is grown all over the world. Actually, it's not an Indian crop. I think tomato came from Americas. Initially, tomato, even potato, they all came from American continent. The whole world now even mirch also is American, by the way. It came from American continent. It was not part of the European, Asian, African thing. Now, all over the world, people raise tomato in large quantities. In a country like Australia, they have large farms producing, each hectare producing 50, 60, 100 tons. And sometimes there is a glut. But you never see price volatility like we see in India. 100 rupees now people are complaining. And within a few weeks, I guarantee it will be 50 paise. And you'll have dramatic pictures in newspapers and on TV where the farmers dump it on the street because they don't even know what to do. It's not worthwhile even packing it. What does the rest of the world do? They have processing units. There is an end-to-end proper market chain. So if the market price is low because there is a glut in the market, if the supply outstrips demand, and you cannot in farm sector always guarantee the supply and demand are well managed. There's always, agriculture is always subject to vagaries of nature. Therefore, when there's a demand-supply mismatch and supply is excessive and therefore there's a glut in the market and price collapses, you don't have to indulge in distress sale. Most of the crop goes towards processing. You have end-to-end market chain, therefore the processing unit is available. The storage and processing transport are available. Grading is available. And the processor guarantees a price of, let's say, 10, 15 rupees in the Indian context. You may not get 50 rupees, but you get your 10, 15 rupees a kg. And when the price goes too high, the processed food comes into the market so that you don't have to buy tomatoes at 100 rupees a kg, but you get a tomato puree or tomato finished product or juice or whatever at a reasonable price, and therefore the price in the market is moderated. The supply improves then. When the supply is too much, you are improving the demand by taking away the supply and going into processing. When the supply is too little, you are allowing the supply to come into the market, processed food, by meeting the demand and therefore removing the supply gap. So both for the producer and the consumer, price is moderated. There's no volatility. It doesn't require genius. Not even 3% of our fruits and vegetables are processed in India. One of the lowest levels of processing for a country which is one of the big powers in the global agriculture, because India has 11% of the global agricultural land. India is on par with the United States, while the total landmass of India is only 2.5% of the world's landmass. Our agricultural land is 11% of the global agricultural land. Only India and America, depending on the given year, number one, number two are India and America, the land under crops. China, which is an agricultural giant, has only 40% less land than ours. We have 140 million hectares, 160 million hectares of land under agriculture. China has only 100 million hectares, about 40-50% less than India's. We are blessed with that. We have pretty good soils, reasonable water supply, and centuries, millennia of agricultural tradition. So the government policies, bad policies, are government's failure and inaction. If you allow retail chains to come in a big way, for instance in the country, now they will take care of the whole supply chain. They will compress the market chain. And therefore, from the farmer producer to your packaging, your grading, your transport, your storage, your processing, your retailing, and opening up export markets, they will take care. They get very little margins, but the volumes give them the money. And the long-term growth of the economy gives them the incentive to invest here. Hundreds of billions of dollars are required to invest in infrastructure in this country. All the parties together have not allowed the big supply chains to come to the country. Though the policy was laid down by Manmohan Singh government against all resistance, it was never implemented. Even today, there are all kinds of restrictions. Single brand we'll allow, but not multi-brand. We'll allow a big, wholesale market, but all retail market. And all kinds of things. Totally irrational. And we are hurting Indian agriculture. So, even this discussion gave us a sense of 1, 2, 3, 4. Do them all, and then penetrate the global markets. India's exports today are of the order of about $30 billion. Still agriculture, we are actually, despite all these handicaps, in agricultural trade, India is in surplus.
Yes.
Despite all these handicaps. We can easily achieve another $100 billion exports if we actually have retail chains and clean up this mess of supply chains and have proper processing with quality. That's the kind of opportunity that exists in agriculture, apart from enhancing the incomes of the farmers directly by sensible policy. So if you do that, then let us see how much the farmers will get. I don't know how much they'll get. If they're getting X today, it may be 1.8X, it may be 2.5X, I don't know. I can't precisely give a number, but it will be significantly more than today. Without doing all these things, somehow sitting and doing the japa, giving the slogan, will enhance the incomes. What does it mean? How will it enhance the income? Income comes from where for the farmer? From the price. Who will dictate the price? The market. So how can anybody guarantee it? But you can design policies to ensure that the farmer gets a decent deal. You must be humble about your capacity. Your capacity is doing all the things I mentioned, removing the market distortions created by the government or by the inefficiencies in the system, or bad policy, or bad infrastructure and institutions. And if the market fails in some cases, then give judicious support to farmers, because farm sector is a unique sector that requires special assistance everywhere in the world. Once you have a policy like that actually being implemented, then I know the governments and parties are working for the farmers and incomes will rise. They may not rise as much we want, sometimes they may rise more, depending on the commodity. But we know the link between what the government actually is doing and the benefit that the farmer gets. Right now, show me where is the policy link. Show me where is the policy link. You remove the tariff barriers when the foreign product is very, very cheap. You cannot compete. And whenever the price rises, you use the regulatory tools to destroy the farmer and the pricing. And you don't build the infrastructure. You don't allow the farmer to have the stability of price, and therefore is subject to price volatility because you have not built the infrastructure or the credit system that reaches the farmer. You don't compress the market chain. You don't create incentives for entering the global markets, take advantage of our agricultural advantage, and then you give slogans that, no, I love farmers and farm sector should improve. Somehow I will make farmers rich and prosperous. Actions speak louder than words. Intentions are good of all parties, all governments, but I don't see actions matching intentions.
Thank you, sir.